Have you ever felt like something in your life is off, but you can't quite put your finger on what it is? You have a job, maybe even a good one. You have relationships, friends, routines. On the surface, everything seems fine, but deep down, you feel restless, like you're just going through the motions, like something inside you is missing, but you don't know what or why. Most people ignore that feeling. They tell themselves it's normal. They try to distract themselves, scrolling, binge-watching, numbing the discomfort, hoping it will go away. But it doesn't. Because that feeling, that's your wake-up call. That is your highest self calling for change. Most people never answer that call. They keep doing the same things, following the same routine, hoping that somehow life will magically feel different. But if you don't change, nothing changes. If you feel stuck, it's not because life is against you. It's because somewhere along the way you stopped questioning. You stopped reassessing. You started accepting a version of life that isn't actually making you happy. So what do? You stop, you step back. You take a brutally honest look at your life. You ask yourself the questions that most people are too afraid to face. Why do I feel unfulfilled? Am I living in alignment with my values? Or am I just following a path I didn't choose? What do I actually want from this life? If you never stop to ask these questions, you will stay exactly where you are, living on autopilot, waiting for something to magically change. But if you're watching this, then something inside you already knows. It's time to reassess. It's time to stop ignoring the signs and start digging for answers. And by the end of this video, you won't just understand why you feel this way. You'll know exactly what to do about it. Let's get started. Comment below, I am ready to take control of my life. Let this be your first step in committing to real change. Let's talk about the first step, awareness and self-reflection. The first mistake people make when trying to fix their life is looking for external solutions to an internal problem. They change jobs. They move to a new city. They start a new relationship. And for a while they feel better. The distraction works until it doesn't. Because the real problem isn't outside of them. It's inside. And this is where self-awareness becomes the most powerful tool you will ever have. The Stoics believed that a person's ability to examine themselves honestly is the foundation of all wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, wrote, "A man should be upright, not kept upright." What does this mean? It means that true strength, true clarity comes from within. No external factor can fix what is broken inside you. Only you can. So before you try to change your circumstances, you have to do something far more difficult. Look in the mirror and get brutally honest with yourself. Ask yourself, am I actually happy with the way I'm living, or am I just comfortable? Am I growing as a person, or am I just maintaining? Am I acting in alignment with what I truly want, or am I just afraid to take risks? Most people think that if something is wrong in their life, they just have to wait for the answer to come to them. That if they sit in discomfort long enough, clarity will magically appear. But that's not how self-awareness works. You don't just realize things by accident. You have to go looking for the truth, and one of the most powerful tools for that, journaling. Yes, I know some of you might be rolling your eyes. That's silly. I don't need to write my thoughts down. I already know what I'm feeling. But do you? Most people walk around carrying emotions they don't understand. They feel frustrated but don't know why. They feel sad but can't pinpoint the reason. They feel anxious but assume that's just how they are. That's why journaling is not about just writing in a diary. It's about becoming a detective of your own mind. Because your emotions are clues. And if you ignore them, they don't disappear. They control you from the shadows. So let's get practical. How do you actually dig into an emotion? Imagine this. You're sitting there going about your day. Then suddenly a wave of sadness hits you. Your chest feels heavy, your stomach drops. Maybe you were fine 5 minutes ago, but now you're off balance. What do most people do? They distract themselves. Open their phone, scroll through social media, turn on a TV show, text someone, anything to avoid sitting with the discomfort. But you're here to change that. So the next time you feel an emotion rise up, here's what you do. First, name the emotion. Don't just say, I feel bad. Get specific. Do you feel sad, anxious, frustrated, empty, resentful? The clearer you are, the easier it is to trace back to the source. Write it down. Right now I feel, and fill in the gap. Secondly, find the trigger. Ask yourself, what happened right before I felt this way? Did you read a message from someone? Did you see something on social media? Did a memory pop up? Did someone say something that hit you in a weird way? For example, you feel a sudden wave of sadness after seeing a couple holding hands. Possible trigger. It reminded you that you feel lonely even though you weren't actively thinking about it. Or, you feel irritated the moment your friend cancels plans. Even if this might be the first time they do so, it made you feel like people don't prioritize you, and that's a deeper insecurity. Thirdly, where do you feel it in your body? This might seem weird, but your body holds emotions just as much as your mind does. Pay attention. Is your chest tight? Is your stomach in knots? Do you feel pressure in your head? Are your shoulders tensed up? This is important because your body is telling you something your mind might not recognize yet. A tight chest could mean deep anxiety. A stomach drop could signal rejection. A sudden headache could indicate suppressed frustration. Write it down. I feel this emotion in my blank. And then really take a moment to ask yourself, when have I felt this before? This is where the real breakthroughs happen. Because most of your emotional responses are not new. They're patterns, deeply ingrained reactions based on past experiences. So ask yourself, where in my past have I felt this exact feeling before? For example, if being ignored makes you irrationally upset, is it because you were overlooked as a child? If criticism makes you shut down, is it because you grew up in an environment where mistakes weren't safe? If rejection makes you feel worthless, is it because someone important in your past made you feel unlovable? Write it down. This emotion reminds me of ... This is where most people stop because it's uncomfortable to go that deep. But this is exactly where you need to go if you want to break free from old patterns. And lastly, ask, is this reaction based on my past or my present? Now that you've identified the emotion, the trigger, where you feel it, and how it connects to your past, the next step is asking, is my reaction to this situation based on reality, or am I reliving something from my past? Because here's the truth. Most of the time, your emotional response has nothing to do with the present moment. It's an old wound, resurfacing in disguise. Your nervous system is reacting to the past, not the present. So when you recognize that, you can finally start separating the two. You might be thinking, okay, I get it. But how does writing all this down actually help me? Because journaling interrupts the cycle of mindless reactions. When you don't analyze your emotions, they control you. You lash out. You shut down. You spiral into overthinking. But when you write them down, break them apart and ask better questions, you create distance between yourself and the feeling. It no longer owns you. It becomes something you can observe, question, and change. And the best part, once you do this enough times, you start catching yourself in real time. You'll notice the emotion before it takes over. Instead of spiraling, you'll think, wait, I know this feeling. I know where it comes from. I know it's an old wound. I don't have to react the same way I always do. And that is how you break free from old patterns. Stop looking for quick fixes and start listening to yourself. Part 2. Identifying the root, the 4 core areas of life. Happiness doesn't just disappear on its own. It gets buried under obligations, ignored dreams, bad habits, unfulfilling relationships, and a daily routine that drains you instead of energizing you. So instead of letting that low hum of dissatisfaction linger in the background, we're going to bring it into the light. It's time to dig into the 4 core areas of life where hidden dissatisfaction often hides: career and purpose. Are you just working for a paycheck? Or do you feel like your work matters? Relationships. Are you surrounded by people who uplift you? Or are your relationships draining? Personal growth and fulfillment. Do you feel like you're evolving, or do you feel stuck in the same patterns? Daily habits and environment. Do your daily actions align with the life you want, or are you trapped in cycles of distraction and avoidance? Let's break them down one by one. Number 1. Career and purpose. Do you feel like what you do matters? For many people, dissatisfaction starts with how they spend their days. You wake up, go to work, sit through meetings, answer emails, deal with co-workers you don't like, come home exhausted and repeat the process the next day. At some point, you stop questioning it. You just do what's expected, what pays the bills. And yet, there's a voice in the back of your mind. Is this really it? Because deep down, you know that working just for money isn't enough. People need meaning. They need to feel like their time is being spent on something valuable, something that contributes to the world in some way. If you feel stuck, ask yourself, do I wake up looking forward to my day or do I dread it? If I had unlimited money, would I still be doing this? Does my work challenge me or does it feel repetitive and meaningless? Am I in this job because I chose it or because it's what I fell into? If my younger self saw my life now, would they be inspired or disappointed? Most people ignore this dissatisfaction because they believe they have no other options. But that's not true. You always have the power to make changes, to learn new skills, take a risk, build something of your own. Maybe it's not quitting your job tomorrow, but maybe it's starting a side project that excites you. Maybe it's reading books that help you pivot in a new direction. Maybe it's having an honest conversation with yourself about what you actually want. If this part of your life feels empty, it might be time to reassess. Now let's look into the second part, relationships. Do the people around you uplift or drain you? The people in your life affect your mood, your self-esteem, and your energy more than anything else. You could have the best job, the best habits, the best health. But if you're surrounded by people who make you feel unseen, unappreciated, or unsupported, you will always feel drained. Ask yourself, do I feel energized or exhausted after spending time with my friends? Am I in relationships, romantic or otherwise, out of comfort or out of true connection? Can I be my real self around the people in my life? Do I feel supported, or do I feel like I'm always giving but never receiving? You can tell a lot about why you feel unhappy by looking at the people you spend the most time with. If your social circle is built around complaining, gossiping, or staying the same, you will feel trapped. If your relationships are built around mutual growth, encouragement, and respect, you will feel empowered. Sometimes unhappiness isn't about what you're doing wrong, it's about who you're allowing into your space. And maybe it's time to rethink who has access to you. Number 3, personal growth. Are you evolving or staying the same? One of the most overlooked sources of unhappiness is stagnation, the feeling that every day is the same, that you're not learning anything new, that you haven't changed or improved in years. Human beings are wired for progress. We are meant to evolve, to push boundaries, to test our limits. So when you stop growing, when your life is built around comfort instead of challenge, you start to feel like something is missing. You might not even notice it at first, but over time it weighs on you. Ask yourself, when was the last time I learned something new? When was the last time I did something that scared me? Do I feel like I'm getting better as a person? Or do I feel stuck? Am I living the same year over and over again, calling it a life? If you're feeling mentally or emotionally stagnant, the solution isn't to wait until you feel inspired. It's to start pushing yourself again. Read books that challenge your mindset. Take up a hobby that forces you to learn. Say yes to experiences that scare you. Growth isn't something that happens by accident. It's something you choose. Number 4, daily habits and environment. Are you wasting your life on autopilot? Finally, let's talk about the small things. Not your career, not your relationships, not your overall sense of purpose, but the tiny everyday actions that shape your reality. Because here's the truth. Your life isn't made up of big moments. It's made up of small, repeated behaviors. So if your daily routine is full of mindless scrolling instead of reading, creating, or improving, comfort-seeking instead of doing things that challenge you, avoiding discomfort instead of leaning into growth, then it doesn't matter what your big dreams are. You will never get there. Your future is being built right now, in how you spend your mornings, in how you use your free time, in whether you choose action or distraction. Ask yourself, if I keep repeating today's habits for the next 5 years, where will I end up? Am I filling my time with things that bring me joy and progress, or just things that numb me? When I look back on my days, do I feel proud of how I spent them? Because if you don't like the answers, you have the power to change them. Your habits either push you forward or hold you back. They either make you stronger or weaker. They either build the life you want or keep you stuck in one you don't. So what are yours doing? Part 3. The hidden signs of unhappiness in each area. Now that you've taken a closer look at the core areas of life, career, relationships, personal growth and habits, you might be realizing that something feels off. Maybe you can't pinpoint exactly what it is. Maybe you still feel like your unhappiness is vague, unexplainable. That's because hidden dissatisfaction doesn't always show up as sadness or frustration. It often disguises itself in ways you wouldn't expect. So before we move forward, let's expose these hidden signs so you can recognize them before they take control of your life. Looking into career first, the silent burnout that feels like nothing is wrong. Many people think burnout means being overwhelmed, stressed, and exhausted. And sometimes that's true. But burnout can also feel like nothing at all. You're not miserable. You're just indifferent. You don't hate your job, you just feel numb. You're not exhausted, you're just unmotivated. This is one of the most dangerous forms of unhappiness, because it's not bad enough to force you to change. So you stay stuck, going through the motions, slowly losing interest in your own future. Ask yourself, am I constantly waiting for the weekend? Do I feel engaged with what I do? Or am I just showing up? If I wasn't getting paid, would I still find any meaning in this work? Does this career reflect who I want to become? If you answered no to most of these, your dissatisfaction is already creeping in, and if you do nothing about it, one day you'll wake up and wonder where all the time went. Secondly, relationships feeling lonely, even when you're surrounded by people. One of the biggest misconceptions about unhappiness is that it only exists when you're alone. But the truth is, you can be in a room full of people and still feel completely alone. You can have a relationship and still feel disconnected. You can have friends and still feel misunderstood. You can have family and still feel unseen. The quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life. And if your relationships are built on obligation instead of connection, you will feel emotionally starved. Hidden signs of dissatisfaction in relationships. You feel drained after social interactions instead of energized. You feel like you can't be your true self around certain people. You avoid confrontation even when something is clearly wrong. You feel stuck in cycles of shallow conversations and surface-level friendships. You're in a relationship, but deep down, you don't feel truly chosen or valued. If this resonates with you, it's time to stop settling for relationships that keep you small. Because the people in your life should add energy, not take it away. And if your environment is suffocating you, it's time to breathe somewhere else. Number 3, personal growth. Stagnation disguised as I'm just taking it easy. Growth is uncomfortable. It forces you to confront the gap between who you are and who you could be, and most people don't want to face that. So instead they tell themselves, I'm just taking a break. I don't need to change right now. I'm fine the way I am. But deep down, a voice keeps whispering, is this really all I'm capable of? The longer you ignore that voice, the easier it is to accept a life of stagnation. Signs you're secretly stuck. You avoid setting new goals because you don't want to disappoint yourself. You tell yourself you'll start next month, every month. You feel low-key envious of people who are growing, but never take action yourself. You look back at the last 3 years and realize nothing has really changed. Your potential is waiting for you. The question is, how long will you make it wait? Number 4, daily habits. The trap of harmless distractions. Not all unhappiness comes from big, obvious problems. Sometimes it sneaks in through the smallest choices you make every day. The ones that seem harmless. The ones that feel like they don't really matter. Like hitting snooze. Like scrolling for 30 minutes before bed. Like choosing comfort over challenge, one tiny decision at a time. It doesn't feel like a big deal in the moment, but multiply it by months, years, an entire decade. One day you wake up and realize you've spent half your life watching other people live theirs. Signs your habits are secretly making you unhappy. You start your day reactive, checking social media before even getting out of bed. You consume more than you create. You waste hours on distractions, but tell yourself you don't have time for what really matters. You have dreams, but your daily routine doesn't reflect them. And the hardest truth of all, the way you spend your days is the way you spend your life. If your habits are keeping you small, you are choosing stagnation. And the longer you stay in this cycle, the harder it becomes to break free. You are not randomly unhappy. You are not just feeling stuck for no reason. There is always a cause. And once you see it, you can do something about it. Your task today: take a notebook. Write down the 4 core areas. Career. Does this path align with the person I want to become? Relationships. Are my connections fulfilling or draining? Personal growth. Am I evolving or just existing? Daily habits. Are my actions moving me forward or keeping me stuck? And be brutally honest with yourself. The answers will be uncomfortable, but they will also be your wake-up call. Now that you know, what will you do about it? At this moment, you have 2 choices. You can close this video, go back to your routine and let time keep slipping through your fingers, or you can make a decision. A decision to stop ignoring the discomfort. A decision to stop waiting for the perfect moment. A decision to take responsibility for your life, starting now. The truth is, nothing will change unless you do. Your dream life, it's not waiting for you. Your potential, it won't unlock itself. Your happiness, it's not hiding in some future version of yourself. It's here, right now. And the only way to reach it is to start moving. If this video spoke to you, then you already know this journey isn't easy. Self-discovery is uncomfortable. Breaking bad habits takes discipline. Facing the truth about your life requires courage. But you don't have to do it alone. At Stay Stoic, we dive deep into the wisdom of Stoicism, self-mastery, and real-life strategies to help you reclaim your time, sharpen